In this video, we will be looking at the diversity in plant nutrition. So the word nutrition itself is a process of organisms obtaining energy and nutrients from food, and these energy and nutrients, they are meant for growth, maintenance, as well as repair of damaged tissues. So under this subtopic, you will be looking at this parasitic, epiphytic, and also carnivorous plants, which three of them having different adaptations to obtain nutrients. So the first one, parasitic plants. So as you can see the picture here, this is a picture of a Rafflesia species, a flower. So this is actually a parasitic plant, okay, which live by, remember, if it is a parasite, they lived on other plants, and we call the other plants as the host. So the roots of these plants will absorb organic substances, minerals, as well as water from the host. How? By penetrating the stem up to the vascular bundles of the host. Do you still remember what is vascular bundles? They consist of the xylem and the phloem tissue, which are responsible for transporting organic substances and also mineral and water from the roots to the other parts of the plants. So this causes the parasitic plant to grow faster and flourish. And what will happen to the host is that this host eventually it's going to die because all the nutrients and the water will be used up by the parasites. So the host suffers malnutrition, they dried up, and eventually they die. Okay, next is the epiphytic plants. So from the picture here, you can see the green color. So epiphytic plants are actually green plants, which means they can undergo photosynthesis. So these epiphytic plants, they lived on other plants, which we also call it as the host, for the reason of sitting at the best position over here, taller host, because they want to receive more sunlight to enable them to carry out photosynthesis. Imagine that plants like these, the bird's nest fern, if they are to sit on the ground, surely the other shades of other taller plants will overshadow this bird's nest fern, and therefore they might not have enough sunlight for photosynthesis. Epiphytes do not harm the host because the roots of the epiphytes, they can absorb nutrients from accumulated in the gaps of the plant stem. So they don't do any harm to the host, unlike the parasites. So most epiphytes, if you notice, for example, this type of orchids, they have swollen stems. Now ask yourself, why are the stems swollen? It is not because of disease, but this is because having swollen stems enable them to have bigger capacity or to store more water. Okay, the third type, that is the carnivorous plants. Also, you can see a lot of greens over here, which means they are able to synthesize their own food by carrying out photosynthesis as well. But why do we call them carnivore? Because they trap prey. So carnivorous plants, they secrete nectar, they have carps like this, the Venus flytrap, to trap the prey, typically insects. Okay, because when you see the terms carnivore, you might be imagining animals, big animals like the tigers and the lion. No, but for carnivorous plants, we're actually referring to those insects. So upon being trapped, these prey, these insects, they will then be slowly digested by digestive enzymes. So the trapped animals can supply nitrogen to the plants. You still remember nitrogen is the macronutrient that's very important in formation of the chlorophyll. It's very important for growth as well. So this is so being and being the nitrogen supply to the plants, this is because the carnivorous plants living in the soil having lack of nitrogen sources. That means these plants they thrive in the soil which has poor supply of nitrogen, and therefore they depend the nitrogen sources mostly on the insects that they have trapped. Now let's look at this activity 3.2 with the aim to investigate the effects of habitat change on the growth of the carnivorous, the carnivorous, parasitic, and also the epiphytic plants. So having these materials apparatus. So let's look at the procedure. You have to get these three types of plants and to plant each of them inside the vessels containing soil. And make sure that each plant is provided with enough of light, water, and fertilizer. And this is the technique that you are to observe and record the growth of each plant on every week for a month. So discussion is that which of the three plants can adapt to habitat change? What do you think? Which among the three? So based on your observation, what will happen to the Indian willow plant after 1 week? This is the one, so justify. Okay, pitcher plant seems to be able to adapt to habitat change. You see, this is the procedure where now three of them is living in a vase containing soil. So trace back, look back at the three nutritional adaptations of these plants. Okay, for example, parasites are living on a host and they are depending on the host. So this Indian willow is a parasite. So if they live in a vase containing soil, there's no other host for them to depend on, so they will die. So because they have no food sources and also water and mineral sources to enable their root to penetrate to depend on the host plant, so they will die. So how about this? This is the bird's nest fern. They are the epiphytes, so they have to live on taller hosts. But now that they are living in a vase containing soil, so also they won't um, have enough supply of sunlight. Okay, for pitcher plant is a carnivorous plants. So still, maybe the soil in the vase also might not be having enough of this nitrogen supply, but then they can still trap insects, which will then supply nitrogen for them, where they get their nitrogen sources and enable them to thrive. Okay, but this one is observation after 1 week. So more than 1 week or weeks or months after that, perhaps they also cannot survive. So we are not sure about that. Okay, so there's a bioexploration over here. You can see this picture, Riftia pacatilla. So this is giant colorful tube worms. So another nutritional adaptations. This is actually a chemosynthetic nutrition, chemosynthesis nutrition. Okay, chemosynthesis nutrition. So that means they depend on chemical substances and also minerals. They don't depend on sunlight as as its source of energy. So chemo, that means chemical, it depends on the bacteria living in the body. Okay, so this is actually they are also making their own food, and we call them autotrophic. They undergo autotroph, they are having this autotrophic nutrition. Just like green plants, they are able to undergo photosynthesis. That means they synthesize their own food. But same goes to this, but then they don't depend on sunlight. They depend on the chemical energy from the bacteria living in the body. So for human beings or for other animals, okay, like herbivores, uh, carnivores, okay, human beings as omnivores, we don't make our own food, so we practice heterotrophic nutrition. Okay, so you can click this link here to watch the video on this very interesting giant colorful tube worms. Okay, so we have come to the end of the chapter. Chapter 3, Nutrition in Plants, where we first look into the main inorganic nutrients, which is divided into macro and also micronutrients. Also, we look at the organs, which is the root for water and mineral uptakes. So we see the structures, the external structure with these terms, and also the internal structures of the roots and their significance, as well as the last part, which we have just discussed about the diversity in the plant nutrition.